Hi there, I am Vanina Clemente, the owner of Penetrate Through Shame, Thrive Beyond Trauma. I have been a therapist now for, I want to say, 5 years. I have my master's in social work. I have my license in social work and have worked in private practice as a therapist, a clinician, helping individuals suffering with postpartum depression, schizophrenia, bipolar, borderline personality disorder, marriage counseling, and lots of trauma, depression, anxiety. I absolutely love working with people. I love listening to people, and I really love being able to be a practitioner and a guide and tool for people that want to heal and want to better understand themselves and become self-aware and understand where their pain is coming from. I really appreciate people that feel safe with me enough to share their most vulnerable stories and pains and traumas, and it just amazes me the things that people go through that you would just never think of or you would never know. And so I am extremely thankful for my practice. I am currently now practicing as a coach and not a clinician. I have chosen that path for very specific reasons. Number one being, I am not your typical therapist. I think I really do things out of the box, and I understand that there are plans and procedures and rules put into place for the safety of the client as well as the clinician, right? And so I really have always respected that, working under that practice in that field, and I still respect it now, but I just like to do things in my own way. For example, being able to work with someone that maybe found me on social media, or being able to work with someone out of state or out of the country, being able to work virtually, being able to text my clients, being referred to different friends or family members. And so those are some of the reasons why I decided to work outside of the typical clinical practice and just start my own coaching practice so that I could kind of do things more my way and my style that I felt was best fit for the client population that I currently want to work with. So I primarily focus now on trauma-informed care. I still love my marriage counseling, but I genuinely love working with prenatal, postnatal, postpartum care. I really love working with women that are going through major life transitions, such as graduating college, finding their career, going through a really intense breakup, and now having to redefine your identity and understand who you are and work through traumas, physical traumas, psychological traumas, understanding your diagnosis, becoming more self-aware, compassionate with yourself, setting boundaries, creating new relationships, going from being a girlfriend to a wife, right? Like, how hard is that? How wonderful and how beautiful, but how hard is that major transition? As well as going from married life to motherhood, right? Again, another thing that some of us plan, some don't, but regardless, it happens, and now we're here and we want to embrace it, but it is so beautifully difficult and hard. I have found that I really love working through those major life transitions, redefining yourself after losing your job, or redefining yourself after ending a serious relationship or a marriage, right? Like going through divorce, or even for my women out there that I've worked with for so long that are transitioning from motherhood into now their own individuality, finding themselves again after their kids go off to college or hitting menopause, right? And the changes that their body and their hormones face. So that is what I am diving into now. And I created Penetrate Through Shame, Thrive Beyond Trauma because I really felt the desire to be more transparent myself as a practitioner and as a coach, and share more of my story and connect with more women and professionals that I admire and can build relationships with and also build a community with. So this podcast, which I have named PTSV, which is the acronym for Penetrate Through Shame, but also post-traumatic stress, which is my favorite. I absolutely love trauma. As funny and weird as that sounds, if you have trauma, I love it, right? Like, let's talk about it, let's explore it, let's process it, let's create a safe space, let's try to process it through our bodies, through our minds. But unfortunately, with trauma comes a lot of shame, and that is something that I am no stranger to. I have lived with a lot of grief and shame within me for many years, and honestly, my whole life. I'm lying. It's pretty much been my whole life. And I think now, as a wife and a mother and wanting to become a business owner, I kept seeing a lot of things coming up for me, a lot of things that were very triggering for me. And I grew a lot of curiosity towards that. Like, why are these things coming up? I'm someone that has always taken care of my mental health. I have always gone on retreats and looked up the best doctors and places, and I went to graduate school for mental health, and I just always had so much curiosity in my story and why I do the things that I do and why I process things the way that I process them and why I view the world around me the way that I do, and just all of my ins and outs. I have always had a genuine curiosity for it, and I want to promote that in my clients as well, just having a curiosity about yourself and better understanding yourself. So the biggest thing that I think I want to promote in my work is embracing our shame, right? Not letting the trauma that we've experienced and endured define us and become a new label, right? Because when we go through significant trauma, we are labeled with anxiety and depression and mood disorders, and they're very valid, they're very real, they're very difficult. And it feels so unfair because on top of the fact that we have now endured trauma, now we have to endure the post of it. And that sticks with us for a lifetime, right? And so my goal in starting my company, my brand, and now my podcast is to bring a lot of awareness, a lot of empathy, and to create, hopefully, for a lot of people, particularly women, resiliency and embracing their trauma, embracing their shame, embracing it so that they can sit with it, heal through it, process it together, feel safe within themselves, begin to feel safe within the world, and really gain a sense of trust within themselves, their intimate partnerships, their friendships, their relationships in general. This is something that is very special for me because I went through a significant amount of trauma growing up. I was sexually abused by my grandfather from a very young age. I don't even know when it began, to be honest, but up until I think I was like 8 years old when I told my parents finally. And so that was extremely difficult, and I think I did a really great job at processing it in the moment for what it was, to the capacity that I could process it as an 8-year-old, because of the parents that I had, right? I had amazing parents that did their best to get me all the help in the world. And, I asked my mom now, what would the therapist say that I would talk about? Because I genuinely don't remember. I'm pretty sure I just disassociated a lot of my childhood as well in order to survive. And she says that I really didn't engage in therapy when I was that age, that my therapist would just say I was fine. It wasn't until I was in graduate school that I realized I had a lot more than I imagined. I know that, when I was in my mid-20s, I decided to move away to Europe after being in a very difficult and toxic relationship and losing my dad at the age of 21 and going through a lot of trauma with his loss and his grief and just watching him disintegrate, unfortunately, due to his Parkinson's disease. And so I ran away to Spain and lived there for a year and studied abroad and did all the things that you do when you're in your 20s and dated, but I was always actively going to therapy. I was always actively trying to understand like this grief that I had in me. And it wasn't just the grief of my dad or the grief of my sexual trauma. It was just this shame in me that was just, it was so overwhelmingly in me. And I just always wanted to understand it. I was always so emotional. I was always very in tune with my emotions and always trying to understand people, understand myself. I would do things like I would push my own boundaries and my own limits to try to better understand like my capacity for the world around me and how to respond to it, which wasn't always safe and wasn't always smart, but it taught me a lot. And it wasn't until I decided to go to graduate school when I sat with a DSM in front of me and opened it up after receiving, the diagnosis from different doctors and therapists that I had complex PTSD and I had OCD and I had depression and I needed to be medicated, and I wouldn't take my medication because I just did not want to. There's nothing wrong with medication. Always listen to your doctor. This is not medical advice. This is my own personal story. But It wasn't until I saw myself literally written down in a DSM, like all of my things, that I was like, oh wow, I really went through a lot. Here I am in a book, right? And so that was a driving force for me to better understand myself in ways that maybe I thought I did before and I didn't. And then moving forward in life, graduating, working private practices, getting married, becoming a mother, postpartum for me was a very difficult and real thing. And ever since then, I think I also truly tried to understand more of the layers of my trauma and the ways that it impacts me, my sexual abuse, the way that it's impacted me throughout all the layers of my life, whether it was my adolescent life, adult years, going to college, learning, relationships, intimate relationships, the reason why I chose where to work, what to do, the way I treated my body, the way I viewed my body, all the things. And so it wasn't until I became a mom and I'm thinking like, okay, like we got over postpartum, we made it, we did it, we're thriving now, right? We're married to a wonderful, wonderful, safe, beautiful man that gives us the most beautiful, loving life. We have children, and then boom, again, right? My mental health. And I'm just like, oh my God, how much more self-awareness and work can I do? And so that is when I really started realizing that trauma and shame is a big part, like comes with us in a lot of our life transitions, right? In all layers, in all capacities, in all the chapters of our lives, it will always show up to some capacity. And so for me, that just tells me that you don't ever truly fully heal because healing is not linear. And if you have the expectation of going to a retreat or seeing a therapist or doing whatever work you feel like is calling for you to heal, and you think that that is going to be the end all be all, you are wrong. It is healing for that moment, for your capacity to understand that at this point in your life. But it's better, I have found personally, to invite in your trauma, invite in your shame, sit with it, explore it, give it the validation and respect that it needs, meaning give yourself grace. Understand why you're doing the things you're doing. Try to understand that it's coming from a place of pain, of feeling unsafe. And I know that that can be very draining for many of us that have spent our whole lives essentially healing from trauma. But if we begin to view it through the lens of, this isn't who I am, it's not my identity. However, the things that I have faced and have endured will forever come with me along my journey, and they're just always going to be there, and there will be certain triggers, and I need to be okay with embracing them and understanding them and giving them the respect that they deserve during these chapters in my life. Then I find that it is much easier to endure and to understand and to come to a place of self-compassion and self-love with yourself. So that is why I have decided to have my own business, kind of go about things my own way, and also start this podcast where I will be hostessing many different speakers, right, from all realms, whether it's us chit-chatting and having girl talk, understanding motherhood, having different psychologists and psychiatrists and doctors on here explaining certain diagnoses, having real transparent conversations that hopefully help my viewers and my clients listening and trying to sit and heal with their trauma and their shame. I'll share with you that very recently I was diving into so much reading about shame and what it is and why we feel it and where it comes from. And for me, there was a particular word when reading an article that just brought me so much validity and healing. And it was, your trauma and your shame can feel humiliating, and that's where the shame comes from. It's from that humiliation, and I was never able to pinpoint what my shame was, right? Like, what is it that I feel constantly? And it was humiliation. As I read that word, I had a very specific movie-like trigger where I was being violated, and I was able, like, that single word, hearing the word humiliation resonated with me so deeply that it brought back that trigger, and I just broke down and cried. But I found in that moment that that's what I want for my clients. I want my clients to be able to truly label, name, understand what their shame is, what their pain is, and really embrace it and sit with it and give it the validity and the love that it deserves in order to move forward and regain a sense of self-worth and a sense of who they are and their why, and that there's so much more than that, right? Because when we're feeling consumed constantly by our trauma and our shame and our pain, we lose ourselves. We lose everything about us because we feel like that's just consuming us all the time. And I think that when we can properly label it and understand it, give it the love that it needs, we are in a better place of moving forward and being able to heal in the way that we would like in order to transition into the next part of our lives. And so that is my hope and my goal with this podcast and my brand as well. And I appreciate everyone that has been tuning in. I appreciate all of my clients that have begun working with me one-on-one. I would not be here without you guys. And I hope to talk to all of you very soon. Tune in.